To order since the clock is slow. Thanks, Glenn. First thing, public comments. I just looked right at your check.
Is this on?
Is the green button
Green
on?
button? See, a green light is on. Oh,
Thank you. On May 19th, Jeff Bico, the president of BTS, presented a status report on the implementation of the CARES broadband service. In his presentation, he advised that many areas within the CARES designated service area will not be able to receive the service because of existing trees and topography issues. This is not a legitimate reason to deny service. The invitation to bid dated November 30th, 2020, under Task 3 states, "It is the sole responsibility of the successful bidder to ensure that the system is professionally installed and operating to provide the service required. Should you decide that the above list of equipment is incorrect or additional equipment is necessary or other equipment should be substituted to ensure that the system will correctly function, you should itemize the new or replacement equipment with the reasons for such equipment or substitutions." In addition, BTS has offered an alternative service solution through its commercial service to customers within the service area. And I have 4 attachments here for you to review. We would like a response by June 9, 2021, that the Lcba will require BTS to provide service as required by the contract within the Lancaster's CARES service area.
Chair, Madam Chair,
yes,
could I pose a question?
yes, ma'am.
The attachments to this document, is that something you received from BTS?
Yes.
And was that to you directly, or was provided to commercial?
To me directly, to 3 other members of our community received.
And did I understand you correctly that it's an alternative, what was originally proposed to be provided as service?
It has nothing to do with CARES. He has a commercial branch that provides service, supposedly after the CARES Act is implemented.
Oh, okay.
Chuck, you need to
All right,
answer the
thank you.
microphone so everybody can hear.
No,
okay.
the proposals that he presented to us were for his commercial service outside the CARES Act program. And they were presented us as an alternative to the CARES Act.
Okay, we'll review that and look at it further. I guess I'm slightly confused. Maybe one of the other authority members can clarify, but BTS entered into a contract with Lancaster County. Lancaster County has funding pursuant to the CARES Act, but BTS just is an internet service provider that probably has, or maybe has, several service offerings. So I guess what we need to understand is the alternative proposal that they've made to you. It wouldn't necessarily be a CARES Act proposal unless you're suggesting that it's less than the 25.3 that they
No,
originally committed.
The proposal doesn't specify what speeds it will be.
Oh, okay.
So, let me see if I understand this correctly. From what you're saying, it seems to me that he's telling you and others that he is not going to be able to reach you under the like through the CARES Act service that they were going to do, because you're going to be a test household, is that right?
Right.
So it's not working because of the trees, is that right?
Well, that was his presentation. He said that he was having problems because of trees and topography, and he would not be able to provide service to our area.
Okay, right. So he's told you, has he told you that? Well, he said at the meeting. I thought it was like, it was unclear. He hadn't, at the last meeting when he did the presentation, I thought he wasn't sure about
see,
it.
The problem is, as you say, he has yet to come by my house and do a signal strength test.
So he still hasn't done that.
He has not done that since the last meeting.
So why did he send you this?
Well, this was prior.
Proposal.
This was early on. If you look at the dates, I
Yeah,
think
this
it's
is-
March sometime,
February 26th.
February 26th.
Okay.
He said that would be an alternative until the CARES Act became available.
Oh, I see. And did you agree to this?
No way.
No.
Okay, okay.
So what you're saying is if he doesn't deliver as he has promised to under the contract relating to the CARES Act, then your only alternative is this pricing with him?
No, what I'm trying to infer is that if he can provide service to my house under his commercial service, then it's technically feasible to provide service to that area.
Are those, I'm just asking because I haven't seen it, like, those commercial services wireless too?
Pardon me?
All right.
Yes.
Yeah. I just,
It's all
And
wireless.
if you look at the proposal to bid, there's a statement in there that after the CARES Act is implemented, the 301 to 700 customers that are not a part of the CARES Act, he can offer that service under his subsidiary.
that's CDMA.
Yes, that's what he's proposing.
Hey,
It was an option if the agreement was extended and amended beyond the 301. Yes.
Exactly.
Okay.
So did I totally confuse you?
No, I don't
No,
think so.
I think we've got it now.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions from? Okay, thanks. Oh,
Yeah, I will,
all right, John and then Wally.
yes. Okay, well,
I don't have a question, I have a statement. Just to be clear, what Chuck said is exactly right. It's our contention that the topography of this area and the tree structure has not materially changed since December. Secondly, all you have to do is ride around. You wouldn't be surprised by either of those two features. And even if you didn't ride around, the most minute amount of due diligence would have exposed those conditions. He's clearly, under the contract, obligated to offer it, and it's our contention that it's an invalid excuse to say something that you could just see riding down the street is stopping him from doing that. And in addition, he has another service that does it, so it's not a question of technical feasibility. It may be a question of cost, but he's obliged to offer the service, in our opinion, and that price is fixed. Now, my understanding of the contract further would say for the commercial service that when he offers that, it is after you have negotiated with him the price at which it will be offered. That's what the contract states. I don't know if that clears it up or not, but that's my understanding of those 2 points. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Wally. John?
John McCullough, in addition to bothering you people, I also serve as the president of the Eagle Landing Homeowners Association. And as such, as Jeff alluded to when he presented last time, he recently purchased SignaWave, which if you all know the history of SignaWave, our subdivision invested in SignaWave to put poles into our neighborhood. He has since bought that company. At the same time, he's running the CARES project. He had a meeting with one of our members of Eagle Landing. Not a meeting, he was there on a service call to try to get service restored through SignaWave to one of his customers, who happens to be an Eagle Landing homeowner. The homeowner sent me an email saying in his conversation with Jeff, Jeff told him he was not going to be able to serve Eagle Landing under the CARES project, and that he was going to take expensive equipment, but the people in Eagle Landing would rather pay more than worry about the $50 from the CARES project. I mean, to us, and some of us have made mention about this before, we sort of have a conflict of interest here. He's got 14 customers in Eagle Landing. And now 20-some people in Eagle Landing have signed up for the CARES project. 14 of those people overlap. So he bought a company charging us on an average of $100 a month for service. He's now obligated to provide the CARES service at $50 a month. Well, that's not in his best interest, having just bought the company that's getting customers at $100 a month. So there's not an incentive for him to serve us under the CARES project. So I just caution you that he's attempting to cherry pick customers in this 300 zone and trying to exclude us from being part of that because it's going to be a revenue detriment to him. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, John. John, you have anything?
He's here for moral support.
I'm the service dog.
Okay.
And can I ask, how many homes in Eagles Landing volunteered to be test sites for this?
Right now, there's 24 homes in Eagle Landing. There's like
Okay.
56 homeowners that own various pieces of property. But of those 20-some homes, we have 20 people on the list.
So I have-
But you're a test.
Specifically,
Originally, the trial was going to include 20 customers. And at that time, there was 4 customers in Eagle Landing. I live in what I would call a neutral topography area, heavily treed. We had one customer that lived at one of the highest points. We had another customer that lived at a high point closer to the clubhouse. And then we had Wally, who lives down in the valley. So we thought those 4 different locations would test the trees and the topography. They since cut it back to 2 in Eagle Landing, my location and Wally's, which would still give you a pretty good reading of the service.
Who cut back
Excuse
from
me,
4 to 2?
has there been any service orders
Can you hear that?
exchanged between the two parties? Between Jeff and any of the members of Eagle Landing? Or homeowners
Any
of Eagle
service
Landing?
orders? Have you received any, have there been any service orders between Eagle Landing and BTS?
For CARES or for Signal Wave service?
Can you hear that for CARES or for Signal Wave? Nick?
Well, Signal Wave was a company that had been out there, so it's a recent acquisition.
Right,
So-
I'm
Yep.
trying to understand the question.
Yep.
Are you asking if there's additional service requests through Signal Wave or as part of the CARES Act?
BTS.
BTS.
As
Forget
part of the
about
CARES
Signal.
Act, is there service orders, but have you signed a service order with BTS to provide
Yes.
service under CARES?
No, we have not been contacted. And one of the other issues that you need to be aware of, there doesn't seem to be any service protocol or description of the service or terms and conditions. I don't know if you have seen those, but we have yet to see them. And as anyone that's been involved in offering service, you have terms and conditions before you obligate a customer to the service.
I would assume you have one of those for Signal Wave, right? Basically a contractor.
Yeah, we have a detailed contract with Signal Wave
Yeah, but
that
there's
spells
no,
out who's what to do, when, how much it costs.
yeah, but there's no service provider going to guarantee you speed, not on the face of the planet, unless you're corporate.
I'm sorry.
hardware. I said, there's no service provider on the face of the planet that's going to guarantee you speed. Hardwired, but Verizon Wireless is never going to guarantee you speed. Anybody that's a wireless service is not going to
Well,
guarantee.
what
They're
we're
going to
talking-
say, keyword is going to be up to. So,
Well, if you review the contract that the county has with BTS, it guarantees 25 and 3. It doesn't say up to.
Right.
It says
It says that's the
25 and
minimum.
3.
Yeah.
And as the paragraph that I referred to earlier gave the provider, the bidder, the opportunity to make changes or additions.
Right.
That was not done.
You're correct.
Glenn, anybody raising hands or anything electronically? Okay. Any other comments?
Can I just make one quick, Madam Chairman? Honestly, I don't know how you have a trial or a service offering if there's no way to understand the deal you signed up for. For example, suppose the trial works. Are you required to then keep it? Suppose the trial doesn't work. Who recovers the equipment at whose expense? Terms and conditions are, it is normally, in the telecom business, not something you have to discuss. Everybody has them.
Correct.
Correct.
That's how it works.
We agree.
And also, as Kevin says, there could be all kinds of different descriptions of the service. They may talk about speed, they may talk about availability, meaning uptime, or they may also talk about latency.
Yeah.
Any number of things you might think about. Some specify that, some do not specify, but there is nobody that specifies nothing. Nobody.
So when you signed up for this trial, there wasn't some kind of agreement between you and BTS saying, in the event the trial is successful, then you will have a service and under these terms and conditions?
you've s-
Or in the event it's not, you must return this equipment?
You've said it exactly correctly, ma'am. There's not, zero, nothing.
We all signed up.
We all signed up, so
So how did you sign
well,
up?
let me talk about the process as we understood it. You get on the list, and in the process of February and January, I guess, Gary, and some of March, the understanding was, well, here's the list, here's the order, Chuck's number one, I'm number two, we'll contact you when we're ready. End of discussion. Other than, when are you going to be ready? When are you going to be ready? When are you going to be ready? And so I don't actually know what the intended schedule is. At the last meeting I was at, prior to the contract being transferred to the, I guess, assigned to the authority, the entire project, including all 300 customers, was on a schedule chart to be completed by the 5th of July. What was actually shown at the last meeting here? What did Jeff show? I think if you'll look, you'll find it's pretty early in July. I didn't get a chance to review that before I came tonight. Does anybody know of a single customer yet, or a single test customer? I don't. So one of my questions
Oh,
is, I don't know who to talk to, who is managing that contract. And so that's why I'm here tonight, because I think it's you.
Well, I mean, who you really should be talking to is, you have a contract with,
No,
you have
no,
a-
I do not, none.
All
They don't
all they
have
have is a list
No.
to
I
sign
think
up.
that we understand that the contract was assigned by the county to LCBA, and we are looking at that contract, and the information that you're providing here today and that you provided at our last meeting is extremely helpful, as well as Jeff's presentation as well. And so it was just assigned. We have several things coming up on our agenda, and hopefully we'll have more information and be working more directly with BTS regarding deadlines, deliveries, compliance. You know, we need an opportunity to take that next step, and so we appreciate this
Thank you
information.
very much. I think you've understood exactly what we've said. And
We
done it
do.
correctly. If you indulge me for one more minute, I
Sure.
promise no more. I think these terms and conditions are very important. And I think you do have something to say about them under the contract, in my opinion. And one of the things that is important is there will be a point, I don't really have a good clue of what the date, but when the CARES Act, so to speak, terminates, meaning the price will change. And so there, at some point, if you're an existing customer under the CARES Act and you become a customer subsequent to the CARES Act funding, then presumably there may be changes in terms and conditions. If you look at what the $50 price is, and if you look at the specifications on the quotes that we just gave you, it's about a 4-to-1 ratio. I can't imagine that that's the message you want to deliver to the county. So I think there's a lot of stuff to work out here, and I'll just be quiet after that. That's honestly the end of all I have to say about it. Thank
Let
you.
us reassure
Yeah.
you, we are looking at it closely.
And just so you understand, at least the initial questioning I had with Don Gill, who was managing, the manager of the project, is he believed even if we had people in June signing up, clearly, we expected this to be up and running much quicker than where it is. But even those would get 1 year, as long as he has to report to the, this is actually a Virginia state funded grant, which is supported by the CARES, okay, that we have. We have to report on a quarterly basis. And what Don said, he felt as long as these were done by June, they have 1 year. In other words, you would get the $50 per month plus fees. It's not 50 even, so you're going to have taxes and fees on it. But anyway, that would hold for 1 year from his last reporting of that quarter. Could it be later? We have to, again, check back on what the regulations are going to be from the Virginia state government. That's and Evan Feynman's office, is to be more specific. So the answer is, I'm not sure how long that can be pushed, Wally. I just don't know. Yeah. No, and it's a question that needs to be answered, because quite frankly, if you remember, initially, we had everything being done by this time.
I believe March.
Okay. Yeah, so, well, initially December, then February, then March, April, and now we're into July. So, I agree.
Okay, public session, public comment section.
Is that me?
I
or-
didn't touch it.
I sure appreciated it, though.
Okay. All right, public comment sessions concluded. Next, minutes. Michelle.
I circulated the draft minutes and right after the last meeting and got comments from Cherie and Cassie and Gary, and I'm going to incorporate those comments tomorrow. My parents made an impromptu visit. And I'll get that done. And so subject to those changes, could we have a motion to approve them?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes subject to the changes Gary submitted.
I have a
I'll second it.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
I can't say anything. I wasn't here.
Oh, that's right, you were in meetings. So it's unanimous. Okay, new business. I circulated a draft copy with comments from individuals on the paragraph for the comprehensive plan. And any questions about that draft?
Yeah, I did send out some comments.
They're in here.
Oh, you put them in the new one? Okay, I'm just pulling that up.
They're highlighted.
Okay,
All the comments that were received, Cherie and yours,
okay.
were included.
Can I see?
Sure. Actually, if you put it up on there, I have it hooked up right now.
What?
Oh, okay.
That's for-
I was just going to say, you have it on your computer screen. Sherry put in the date, and I think mine are probably in the blue.
Yes.
Okay. And the first one was to say gigabit service to all parcels in the county, parcels meaning business or residential. The other one, you have endeavor to leverage new federal, state. I added foundational and other funding such as, I'm thinking
Jesse
of
Ball
solar project, that could be coming in. That, and to be quite frank, that's why this is needed in the,
Can
This
you
is-
use your cursor to show where you're, what?
the blue
part?
here.
Okay.
Okay. And other, and we may even want to spell out for, so, I forgot what that contract, that third term is in the contract for the, sign a deal for the solar. There's a part where it's basically funny money that they put in to push the deal through for the solar contract. I had presented it before, I just don't remember what it's called. But anyway,
Siding agreements.
Is this
Siding
something-
agreement,
is-
siding, thank you.
Citing.
Okay, and so, again, what Brian Barnes, I talked to him yesterday when I was hanging out here trying to find Don for some other things. He told me that's why he really wants to get into the plan, because this signing agreement's going to be coming up in the next month or so, because they're doing all the work to allow for the approved amendment for solar in our county. So this is coming to a head, and it's a potential of up to $1.5 million. The question is, how do we use it and do it? But if it's not in the wording for solar signing, so thank you, you gave me the right words to put in there, the solar signing agreement where the signing agreement money can be put to broadband, okay, we can't go ahead and do it because it's not in the plan.
They couldn't do it if it's not in the plan?
The comprehensive.
The comprehensive plan, yeah, the
You've covered
comprehensive.
for that by
So that's
saying,
what-
I'm just
and
surprised.
other
it couldn't be-
funding.
Yeah, and other would be
Yeah, I
covered
think
too.
that covers it.
Okay,
Yeah,
Okay.
just throw the word, we just put siding in there, siding funding.
Don't be so specific. I think it's fine the way it is.
I agree.
Okay.
Yeah,
It's
yeah, I think
it's
you've covered
other
it.
funding,
okay. But anyway, that's why I added it.
yeah, the foundational, obviously, we're working on that now.
Yeah.
Kevin? Any comments, additions?
No, all I wanted to make sure is that fiber was in there, it was actually written in there, not just high-speed internet.
I
That was
believe
in
it
there.
is.
It's like,
Yep.
second to the last third statement somewhere in there, right?
Yeah,
It's in there.
okay.
Any other comments? Okay, do I hear a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve it.
All second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, I'll clean up all the,
Errors.
yeah, the
Typos.
typos and stuff. I know what that's why I left it in, the highlighted, because some of that
Okay.
affected it. Okay. Nicholas, about.
Yes.
About, where'd you go? Oh, it took the other one off.
Yeah, I just unplugged this, so.
Okay, about the memo on the business plan, the new bullets that were included. Do you want to touch on those?
Yeah,
I think
after our last meeting per the chairman's request, he wanted us to add in, that we have not, the word allude to the fiber optic cable. So we did put in the business plan and in the memo to the Board of Supervisors, the following clause, I guess it's there, I can read it, that we would work with the incumbent and new service providers to ensure that Lancaster County has the latest and best technologies, which will offer a minimum of gigabit internet speeds. The Lcba shall endeavor for an all fiber optic solution to meet this requirement. So once again, that was put in both the memo to the Board of Supervisors and into the business plan under our mission statement. Another request we had was, we kind of, I think it was an internal request that we added in both documents also, that we have, to acknowledge that we have shifted gears somewhat as an authority, from building our own network to now we're partnering with service providers to do that as a public-private partnership. So we added the following clause, in light of the unprecedented federal and state funding that is being made available and continues in the near future. That's, the Lcba has shifted its business plan from an Lcba-owned and operated system to a private-public partnership model. Not only is this new strategic approach less expensive, but it can deliver FTTP faster, and internet service providers will be subject to the strict federal and state compliance requirements to ensure deadlines and service performance commitments are met. So we kind of just wanted to add that in after our last discussions.
All right,
Okay.
comments?
In this vein, I tried to put a pro-con sheet together, and I welcome other comments on that. Let's see. And what this one, everybody can see it on their monitors at that point or the screen. I tried to put up LCB ownership versus business arrangements or PPP, triple P, okay, type of things. And upfront investment, there's a big negative on the ownership because there's a lot of capital there. Business arrangement, it all falls among the players, whoever you end up doing the project with. The control of the decisions, though, is much stronger on Lcba ownership. Basically, you're doing what you want to do, when you want to do it, and you're moving ahead. The negative is you're in a public-private partnership. Fundamentally, whoever is paying for it is going to be in control and moves that forward. You basically have a little influence, but not much, on all those items that you want. Now, final project cost to the taxpayers. Ownership actually is better because fundamentally what you're doing, you're creating a business model where you have the P&I covered, okay, and that's paid off over 20 years if that's how you're doing the loan. And so the net tax money that goes out, requirement from the taxpayers is actually zero, okay? Whereas with in this PPP, for example, right now, the one that we're doing with All Points Broadband right now, it's costing us $575,000, and that is going to have to come out of the taxes of Lancaster County. Now, there may be ways in the budget how they finagle it, whether it comes out of this pot or that pot, but fundamentally, anytime you take money from one pot or another, it then takes something else out that money would have been paid for.
Gary, can I ask for clarification on that point?
Yeah.
I understood that the county received 2.7 million from CARES, and that the 575,000, and there's a certain amount of that money that has to be used toward broadband infrastructure. Towards broadband infrastructure by a date certain, under that CARES Act. And that the 575,000 is being contributed from that fund for the broadband infrastructure that's being made available pursuant to the MOU with APB. Am I incorrect?
You're correct. But,
Okay.
as I said, they can also take that money from the CARES Act and use it in other fashions other than broadband. They don't have to use it. So inherently, you're taking something away. Yes, that was a commitment of how the BOS decided to use that CARES funding, okay? But fundamentally, it's still.
But that decision has been made, correct?
I assume it's been made, do you know?
We haven't been informed that it was.
Oh, we
it's been
haven't.
requested.
Okay, so I want to make certain that the presentation is covering both sides.
Right.
And the way that you expressed it was to suggest to the public and for the record that by entering into this, as opposed to building it ourselves, it's going to cost the taxpayers more money, because if we build it, they will come and we will make money and pay it back. Is that your position?
I think I heard you correctly, yes. And then what your question is, where does the initial money come from?
I didn't ask a question, no. I mean,
Well, all
$30
your
million
comment.
has to come from somewhere. I
Yeah.
get that.
Yeah.
But since January or into January, I was under the impression that there wasn't a pot of $30 million. And we had hoped that it would come from the Russ grant. That did not come through.
Right.
And even under the Russ grant, the county was going to commit $8 million as part of a match. So now that's not part of it. But fortunately, the Lcba put in a lot of work and effort. They participated in competition for the VATI grant with combination of the other counties, and they were successful. And there's a certain amount of money that must be part of that grant in order to participate. And then APB came back and said, I know that we asked you to participate in our program because we received money from the Rural Digital Opportunity Fund. And we've also partnered with Dominion Energy of Virginia, who's receiving funding from the state to build the middle mile. And we can now serve 2,700 unserved residents and businesses in Lancaster County, and it will cost you $575,000 in a match, correct? And we agreed to do that.
We agreed to do the 575, and
Okay.
that's where I'm saying, we have no way to recoup that 575. And I understand your point is you believe it's free money coming from the CARES.
No, I didn't say it was free money. I mean, it's an investment. The CARES Act is funding to invest in communities. And the public bodies need to determine what is the best way to make those investments. It's not us and them. We're all in this together. The Lancaster County, we are Lancaster County.
Right.
And we're serving as public servants to help bring broadband into the community. And in some instances, there's direct funding where you go to the banks and then you ask for the taxpayers to pay the interest on whatever you get, or you raise bonds, whatever it is you're doing. It's got to come from somewhere. But we are in a unique time. It is unprecedented, the amount of money that is being made available to the states, to the counties, to the communities to deploy broadband services. And that money's going to keep coming for a little while here. And Lancaster County in particular, who has had incumbent competitors in the market that have been unwilling, and they're not required to deploy services at any expense, haven't done it. Atlantic Broadband hasn't done it. Verizon hasn't done it. But now, because of the amount of money that the federal government is sinking in to broadband deployment, because it will be a game changer, this county has an opportunity to access funds it never did before. And I think that if we're going to tell this story about where Lcba started or where the county started and build it and they will come, we have to be upfront about where we are today in 2021, the money that's already been made available to APB and to Atlantic Broadband, the money that's coming from the state, and the benefit and the difference that makes to the taxpayers of Lancaster County.
I don't have a problem with that. What I am saying, though, there is a difference in that you will get paid back that money. In other words, we had to pay $231,600 for the Batty grant. I'm not sure where that money was sourced from. I think that was...
The general fund, I think, is a pretty good guess.
Okay, so the general fund is taxpayer money. For the 575, I understand your point that it was taken from the CARES grant that covers a whole host of things. It's not just broadband, okay? There is a whole host of things that money can be used. So the BOS is making decisions on where it wants to invest the money to it. And so they've made a decision whether to go ahead and use that money to cover the APB match, if you want to call it that. But that money could have also been used for other things, is what I'm saying. And so what you're training one to pay for the other, is all I'm saying.
May I ask a question?
Certainly.
Thank you. And thank you for the agenda, too, the email. What I would like to see in this modified memo, what I'm requesting is, are there any plans to contact the SCC to see if in the future the LCBA could be an ISP that will have equal access to the fiber that runs on the electric poles at the same cost? Because one of the big negatives of doing it yourself is the cost of buying the fiber and putting the fiber in the ground or on the poles. And so if one ISP, which would be you, would have the same rights as APB, that would be huge. And obviously, you have to give APB a chance, and they're not even going to be, they project that they'll be through in 2024, but they may or may not. But I'm wondering if in the memo that you sent of your intentions, the vision and the mission, if you're serious about doing fiber, gigabit, that would seem to be appropriate as a plan to request of the SCC in the future, should APB not deliver, or even if they do. In other words, open that door for yourself to be an ISP, to fill in the blanks in this county.
I appreciate that question, and actually, I think that the plan already encompasses that.
It does not
Well-
say that.
It maybe not be as specific as you think it should be, but it's a plan that's open to the public that has to be dynamic and
It isn't
subject to.
dynamic.
What it says is that the LCBA will become an ISP if that seems like the right direction to go, and it says it at
Yes.
least 3
It
times.
does say that.
But more importantly, the legislature, the Virginia legislature is the one that passed the law that established the pilot program.
I know that.
And its first iteration, it said that public bodies could not be an ISP as part of the program. That was modified by law on March 31st
You know,
of
I
this
appreciate
year.
the lecture. I'm just asking the question if you would
She's
consider
answering
doing
your
that.
question.
I'm
She
answering-
is answering it ad infinitum.
Okay,
I
she's about
understand.
to give a
I
very
apologize.
direct answer to your question. Just let her continue. You're
I-
the correct
I'm-
answer right now.
I mean, that is the answer, that the law permits it. We could become an ISP. We could go to Dominion Energy of Virginia and seek access to their conduit in the middle mile. The thing that we don't know, and I would imagine it's a possibility, to get it on the same terms and conditions as APB did, or something similar,
Well, that's all
because
I'm
they're a
asking.
common carrier.
That's all I'm asking, is if you would be willing to do that, then you could put it in writing that you would be willing to do that, to lower the cost and to increase the speed of the delivery that you would be giving us.
I don't think it's appropriate to put that in writing.
Of course not.
And I also don't know that we would be able to put in writing that that in fact would lower the costs and improve the speeds of what's already on the table.
You know it would. If you had access to the fiber on the poles and didn't have to buy your own and didn't have to put it in the ground and didn't have to pay the make-ready cost to put it on their poles, you know it would lower your cost.
But it would reduce the amount of fiber, but you would still have to do a lot of distribution fiber. So it doesn't completely eliminate you from building fiber network.
I didn't say it would. I said it would reduce your cost.
I just want to clarify that though, because it could be understood otherwise. And we can be an ISP today.
Right.
It's just access to the Dominion pilot program.
Exactly.
The law would have to be changed.
Which is what I was asking, if you would be willing to pursue that.
That is an option and is something that we have previously discussed
I didn't see it
as a
written.
board, and it is in our plan as a general statement that the
Fine.
authority is willing to build if it's,
Fine. I give up.
So you have to understand, this is a new change to the statute that should
I
be
understand
effective
that.
in July.
I know that.
And it also didn't change the language as far as
I know that.
access unserved areas.
I'm not talking about
And
what's
so
in the law.
it's
I'm asking you
premature
about
at this
asking it to
point.
be changed to this point.
I think it is premature at this point to make the specific statement that you ask us to
I totally
make.
understand that you don't want to be specific. I totally get that.
Well-
Thank you. I'm through. I'm through.
all right.
Thank you.
All right, any other comments on the bullets?
But I still
absolutely.
also want to go through other things on here. There are a lot more risks, which I have marked pretty high, if we were to go forward with us, force majeure, all the things of running our own system. And certainly there's a lot less risk if you have someone who's already done this. So there's pros and cons on the sheet. I filled in pluses and minuses, but I think it's an exercise we should do to go through this and modify that to a certain extent. Because again, it goes back to trying to be as quantitative as possible on a decision of ownership versus business arrangements. The other problem that we have as of right now, I'm not aware of any other unserved, based on the two contracts that we have with FATI and with APB, we don't have, to my knowledge, any unserved properties left in the county.
I'm not certain that's accurate, but I think that that's, should be held for a later discussion about contracting.
Okay, but fine, we'll hold that, but I'm just saying, you have to have unserved, right now, even with NTIA grants, you have to have at least 10% of the area as not served.
I'm not certain I agree with that.
It said it in the document.
Well, we can visit that when we
Okay.
have our discussion about contracting,
Okay.
and I've got the NTIA
Okay.
agreement here,
Yeah, I have.
fund
Yeah,
requirements with me, and we can
Okay.
review that, because that's an important point or question that you're raising, but I don't know that I agree with the statement that you just made.
okay.
Other comments?
I'd like to make the one comment, that as far as the risks go, based on the pro forma that Nicholas prepared for us, with your assistance, Gary, the money just doesn't work for us to build
I
our
don't
network, right? I
dis-
mean, so the risk is like through the roof when you're going to be losing millions of dollars
This is my point,
along the
of
way
brownfield versus
through
greenfield.
year 5.
Yeah, this is the same thing when we were doing the reconnect, and I agree with that. I'm not disagreeing with that assessment, okay? And that's what you have to understand, I'm not agreeing with that assessment, or disagreeing with that assessment. What I am saying, unless you have a significant amount of greenfield properties to go ahead and put in, you can't build a business case that is going to be successful.
Correct.
And
Correct.
that's why I was going with the thing, my understanding now, all that we have predominantly, all unserved parcels essentially covered at this point. Okay, and you, there may be some differences and whatnot, but, you know, you're gonna need a significant number of those, at least 500 in a greenfield type of state, okay? And then you're going to need still a substantial amount of the brownfield that you can pick up. And one is 50% market penetration, the other one's 30%, because, you know, whoever's there usually, the first person there usually gets 50% of the market, and then you split the rest of the market between everybody else.
Right, but I think it's also important to remember that we're not done with the funding that's available, and there's 11.1 billion that's going to roll out that'll be available for underserved and not just unserved. So I think that, you know, our contract discussion later is an important one, because there may be some further opportunities here to,
And I
for
welcome-
areas that
yeah.
may not be covered by ABB and APB.
Okay, and I'd love to know where they are, but okay.
All right, other comments on these bullets, additions? All right, and hear a
I've done-
motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the changes to the memo and business plan.
I'll second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
I'd really like to, before approving this, go through the exercise. And I realize this may not be the time to do that exercise, but I really want to make sure that we have that fleshed out, what I just put up there as far as pro and cons.
You want to
We-
go through that chart even more?
Yeah. Well, I don't feel like
Well, we could go through the chart separately.
Yeah, that's what I'm asking.
And discuss that, but I don't think that that affects the memo and the business plan.
But you're not asking for this to be included with it, are you? I'm not sure if I understand that or not.
I think I'd love to have it included, mainly because it either strengthens the case or leaves in question some of it. I don't believe it's going to weaken the case, but I'm saying what you're doing, you're looking at the pros and cons of trying to go down this route.
But
And-
Gary, you're suggesting we didn't do that when we put together this comprehensive business plan.
We did, we understand we did, but Gary's trying to make sure the public understands we did. So it holds a valid point. These aren't just the public, these are the 5 guys that are here every. So I see his point of view is what I'm trying to say.
I
You
guess
are a
I'm
public
concerned about
body.
I'm concerned about the process, because you were very involved in the process. You were very involved in the numbers that are attached to the comprehensive plan. You worked directly with Nicholas on what the costs were. We completed it. We approved it. It was circulated to the Board of Supervisors. There were a couple of requests that were made to add into this plan, and that's what we've revised, and that's why it's on the agenda this evening. And now you've presented a pro-con document that I have not seen before, and we have not discussed before, but I would argue that we have discussed the pros and cons of the direction that we are currently on every step of the way. And now you want to revisit a document that has already been approved.
I'll take exception to that. That was not, I did not approve it.
Well, it was
Okay,
voted
I
on.
always voted on 3-0. It was approved. Okay,
And that's the way the authority works.
okay.
One thing you can consider is I don't want to delay this. I mean, we were asked to include some comments, which we have done, and everybody seems to agree with the comments that we're going to include. I didn't hear anybody not agreeing with these bullets, additions, whatever you want to call them. We can look at, have a discussion later on about the pros and cons. I think they're covered in what's put in the business plan. But if you want to get, you're saying more into, more in the weeds on it, a little bit more granularity to it, something like that, we can always put something up later, well thought out, not just, here it is, shall we change this, and we vote on it. Everybody needs to understand it, maybe make other contributions to it, a comment here or there, whatever, I don't know. And we can always add it. I mean, basically, this is a document we want to make sure it goes out soonest. I don't know if we want to delay it any longer to have further discussions on this, people sending in their comments, additions, whatever, or we go ahead and have those discussions, but put up whatever that final product is, put that up on the website. And also give it to the Board of Supervisors. It's not going to just be on our website.
So I'd like to say that you can pull this up. We went through this process. We discussed, I don't see it, your thing on the screen. We addressed all these issues. You did not do a little chart ahead of time to say, oh, pros and cons, let's make little X's, and we can go through in detail how many little pluses should be on one side versus the other. But the bottom line is, we went through each of these items. We approved the memo and the business plan. You were not at the meeting, which is why you didn't vote on it. Kevin wasn't at the meeting, which is why he didn't vote on it. It was approved. We went through this process. By you coming in here and saying it now, I agree with Cherie, you're intimating that we did not go through this process. We went and we met with the Board of Supervisors. We discussed it. We made the changes requested by the chairman. We made additional changes you requested. So this is actually an approved document that has now been amended based on our collaboration, which was the goal to have with the Board of Supervisors. And to go back now, I think it undermines all the work we did, and it suggests that we did not do a thorough job to begin with. Now, if at some time when we need to reevaluate due to the new statute that we just discussed, and as that comes along and we get more information of how that statute's going to work and so forth, or the new federal funding, and we need to revisit this again, we can certainly do so, and we can go through pros and cons once again, but we went through all these, and so to go ahead and say, oh no, we're going to put off voting on this is, I think that just undermines all of the very thorough work we do, and I completely disagree with that.
This is a living document. It is not in stone ad infinitum, the memo and the business plan. I agree exactly with what you're saying. As additional funding and everything come along, we'll adjust as things, SCC, anything like that, any changes, this will change. It'll be modified. But I have to agree with you, at the end, we did go through a process. And we can discuss this later, but I don't see why we need to include it at this point in the plan.
And this is not something you would include in a plan. I disagree that this is a tool in the deliberation process that could be used. But we didn't use this particular tool that you just presented to us during our process, but we certainly looked at all of these items and thought through all of these items. So to now go back and say, oh, we want to check the box and have this nice little chart added, I think it is unnecessary and unproductive. So I'll make the motion to approve the changes to the business plan and the memo.
I'll second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, 3. 2.
And I will make sure I note exactly who voted on it in the minutes.
Okay, that one's done. Old business, Jesse Ball DuPont. When we started the conversations with Mark Walker, we didn't know about APB. We didn't at that point know about Batty. We hadn't won Batty. The projects that were offered, that you had identified, Gary, and, somewhat prioritized too, which ones were best. Do we need to go back, looking at what's on the table now with Batty and APB, and look at something different for the Jesse Ball DuPont? Because we identified, Gary came up with all the regions that would,
Nutsville.
and a cost to do those regions. But now, if they're going to be covered under the APB Dominion, it seems like we don't want to go say, Mark, here, do this. By the way, APB is going to do this in 2 years, they'll be here or whatever. Do we want to look at something else to present for the foundation as to what we could use funds for?
To be honest, there's no value in going down 354. That is going to be all APB, okay? The only thing you do, you're making them cheaper. And I don't think they're going to give us back any of the 575
No.
that we paid into it. So then the question is, how do you use this DuPont money?
Which we don't know an amount yet, and that'll depend on what we put forth.
Well, I think, I feel comfortable in asking for $1 million over 3 years or whatever it is. And I think we will get in that ballpark, plus or minus.
Could it offset the 575 and the 230, whatever?
But that's what I'm saying. I don't know how, in other words, say you get the money from DuPont, okay? And you're right, this money coming in, I don't know if it can then just go to the county reservoir and you're saying we're actually paying for the 575.
I mean,
That's-
if you present that to DuPont that way, then it can be done.
I agree.
No, but what I was thinking is to your point earlier where you were saying, if the county doesn't decide to use the 575 for the APB project, the 231 or whatever it is, for the ABB, then they can take the money and they can devote it to this community project that brings tablets to the technology or would, it's like something else in the community. Because the funding from Jesse Ball doesn't have to be just broadband. They want, they build homes, they do all
They do a
kinds
lot
of
of things,
things.
yeah.
And so the way it could be pitched is, I'm sure there's many other things that the county needs, right? But to offset the money that we're going to use for these 2 broadband deployments, right?
And that was one of the proposals of how we used the DuPont money. That was the first one Kevin put up. There's another one, we still should talk about the government and, what is it called? EMS services.
The 911 emergency services?
Yeah, because what they're talking about is putting up 2 microwave towers to bounce it from King William to essentially Lancaster. The other alternative, because of the link we now have set up, right back here at the courthouse, we could catch up, and it's in King William, which is where you're bouncing the signal from. So it's at the same place that microwave is coming. Now, the EMS has to accept fiber versus microwave, and I don't know whether that's a yes or no. But if we did that, Jeff claims there's a savings of $1 million. I don't believe that. It's about 500,000, okay? But in capital, because you gotta pay some capital in that. And then it really then comes down to operating expense. You also, since it would be back there, you could have a dedicated circuit also for the Lancaster Courthouse complex. Again, we have to push numbers to say, does that even make sense? I don't know at this point in time, because you have to have all those operational costs behind it, but that may make sense. And then eventually you ask about the schools, and then there's some questions. Can we acquire the Windstream fiber, which is what they did? It's still up on the poles here. It's not that the fiber disappeared, okay, to cover all of the school needs. And right now, it's serving as a secondary connection.
Why are you telling all my secrets in public forum?
Well, Kevin, did you apply to participate in the 7.1 billion? Did you guys file?
For
The one I sent out.
reimbursement for hotspots, basically?
Oh, is that,
Yeah, that's who I
that's
was
all
on.
you,
Okay.
The one I sent you, you
Yeah,
gave to Dan.
yeah.
Yeah,
okay.
good. So that's one potential use, okay? You're right. One is just say, here's 575, we want to support this, therefore we save the 575 from the CARES Act, and we move on to other things. The other thing we talked about, what if the Mary Point Peninsula, this is disqualified? We're not going to know until March whether it is or isn't. I'll feel a lot more comfortable when they come out and say, and have done their work over a month or so, whatever it's going to
Who's
take.
they?
They being APB. APB is going to come out and say, this is covered, this isn't covered. And
Oh,
and then they're going to give us a count of how many homes. It's just going to be.
Which is scheduled for next week, by the way.
Okay.
So
Oh,
you're
that's
saying,
good.
That's
The
great.
timing's perfect.
Yes, before
Before
BTS
NTIA.
gets up and going and all
Well,
that.
that too, but
Yeah.
that's a different topic.
Yeah, okay. But anyway, my point is, once they have that, I feel much better with them going to the SCC and saying, okay, this is what we want to do. And we'll have that number, just like Batty, we thought it was going to be 288, and it turned out to be 193. That's what we really want to know. So we want to have a clean number of what the unserved looks like in our county. Then, if they say, we can't do this area, that gives us an excuse to go out and build out, okay? So again, that could be money,
Or-
whether you DuPont. And
To
the-
NTIA.
Oh, okay, and either one, yes, you're right. It could be, maybe it's double, because you're using one as a matching
Right.
fund or something of that nature. But anyway, the thought, if you look at your screen, is essentially bring from the courthouse and then feed out to the feeders in Mary Point. And that would be, the DuPont proposal you can see is for 600,000 at that point. And then where the county or NTIA grant would be 706, but we could even expand it now to get all the waterfront homes and everything, further out. So that would be modified, but that's a potential DuPont one, but we won't know that for quite a few more months to ask them for that.
And according to the last thing I heard from Mark, he had 3 counties he was waiting to hear from who had not yet responded to their interest in getting something from the fund. I don't know where that stands now. We would have to be able to propose maybe soonest, I don't mean like in 2 weeks, but if he has heard and gotten proposals from the other counties, we have to decide
What we want to do.
exactly. I would think one of the things we should do is look at what would be the priorities that if we didn't use the CARES money and that went back to the county, we'd have to have a strong enough argument about, here's what that money, we'd like to see it moved to for the county. in lieu of broadband, and then have you, DuPont, come in?
Well, actually, I think it's easy. Get DuPont to support this 575. That's an easy story. In other words, DuPont's leveraging their money. 575, you're getting $20 million worth of build out, or whatever it comes exactly to.
But can we get that fast enough for that?
I think for DuPont, you can move quick enough to do that. The other thing that I'm also thinking of, I had initially said, why don't we put a tower up for the county, okay? I'm thinking, I don't know whether it's a county project or a us project. But, you know, one of the problems is that's a desert as far as telecom out there, where Nutsville is and whatnot. And we're running into that. That's one of the problems with our smart poles out there. There's just no phone signal. It turns out the recycling center is the highest point in that area at 100 feet. You know, it doesn't sound huge, but that's big. All you gotta do is cut in a hole, put a tower up, which is 195 feet, which keeps you below FCC. Now, the question is, I've talked to a few of these builders and I think one wrote you on the website, but the builder was more serious. He just wants to build monopoles, you know, of a certain height, and he has connections with Verizon, so that would be your first person on the pole. The second person, hopefully, is AT&T, and it goes, the charges go, penthouse is the most expensive, and then as you go down in foot, you know, it's less and less expensive. I was told you could probably count on about 7,000 per month. Talking to Nicholas, he says that may be a little bit lower, I don't know. But the thought is, one of the thoughts is, how do we get money coming into the Lcba, right?
Well, to the county.
I'm trying to keep us running, okay? If you get the money, in other words, the county would just put up the tower and fine, okay, then take the rental. What we could do is bring in the fiber to there and sell access to the companies, okay? So you're adding a little bit more value to it, and maybe we can get more value out of the tower. But anyway,
Kevin's raising his hand.
yeah, go ahead.
The two solar farms, where are they going?
The solar farms, one is going at roughly Pierce's Road and
Which is on,
Veronica Road.
which neither one of the, well, Pierce's Road is close to the dome.
Yeah, yes, it is, actually. And then there's the other two for this first project, all the way out off Hanso Road. What is that? It hits 600 Laura Road, but the one that goes right across from Veronica Road, but it's not Veronica Road anymore.
gotcha.
It's whatever, 617, I think. And that goes, so one's right there at the end of it, and the other one goes down to Field Trial Road.
The dirt road.
Yeah, exactly. And then that goes to the high transmission.
Well, I'm just trying to, all these future network layouts that are happening,
There's a lot of them.
right? And what's a realistic expectation of cash money we're getting from the solar farm for infrastructure investment?
For I keep on forgetting the name of it. Anyway, it's up to 1.5 million. Richmond County signed 1.5 million.
In 1 year, they're gonna get one lump sum.
It's a lump sum. The other benefits of the solar farm are long-term, but it's.
But didn't you think that the benefit to us would be less than that if we were able to strike a similar deal?
Why would it be less?
I don't know, I just recall you saying that.
No, it was initially, I was told this is worth $14 million.
Oh, that's what it was.
And then I got, and again, it was secondary information until.
Right.
Okay. And then when it turned out, yes, it's worth $14 million, but that's over, what, 20 years or something like that, Bob? And so,
If not more.
if not more, whatever it was. And then they said in the contract, well, okay, we'll give you $1.5 million. You know, I was trying to figure out a project that would work with that.
Could I just say one thing? I don't know for sure, but I don't believe the CARES money is in danger of being needed somewhere else, the 575.
That's helpful.
If you read Chapter 7 of the existing comprehensive plan, which has been around for a while but was modified broadband is the most essential thing
Right.
that's necessary in this county.
I agree.
And I do not believe that anybody's going to do a switcheroo because, and this is just my opinion, I don't think there's any competition for that. We don't want to give CARES money back. We want to spend it all,
'Cause if you
but we
take-
want to spend it all on things that we need. And so if that is helpful,
That's
if it's true,
extremely
now
helpful.
Don's going to be back tomorrow. He's taking these days off, but he's going to be back tomorrow. I believe he will agree with me if anybody wanted to just call him on the phone and confirm what I'm telling you. But if that frees you up to ask DuPont for something specific other than the 575 replacement, then
I just think it would be extremely helpful to understand whether the funds are there or not, because this authority voted, I think, 5-0 to go the direction that we did. And I know Don was here at one of those meetings, and we asked him, you know, do we have the 575? Because that's going to make this possible. And his response was, well, I think you do, but, you know, I'm not the Board of Supervisors. And I think that to move forward, and we really need to be looking forward instead of looking back. We need to know that the commitment's there, that the decisions that we've made with the MOU and working with APB and ABB and taking advantage of DEV through the pilot program is we're committed and making it happen. But the 575 and the 231 are the way that we're going to make that happen.
Right.
And so if we, you know, in these conversations we keep having over and over again, well, do we have the money? Do we have the money? It's like, we just need to know. And I really, really appreciate you saying that, you know, you believe that for the county, and I think for Virginia as a state, broadband deployment is a #1 priority. And so hopefully that means it is a yes. But I think that we really need to move on from having this recurring, you know, and it may just be, you know, in the back of my mind, I was thinking that the reason we don't know is because there's a date by certain, which the Board of Supervisors needs to, you know, throw down the gauntlet and say, yes, we've decided, we've committed, and that date hadn't arrived yet. But if there's,
committed to what?
to commit the 575 or the 231. And so I think we just need to stop talking about it. And so I, you know, I don't know who I was talking to, maybe it was Nicholas or Cassie. I was saying, you know, what I really think is maybe, you know, we had this meeting with the Board of Supervisors, and they said that it was going to be a working session. And I left that meeting, and I felt like, wow, you know, that did not feel like a working session to me at all. And that maybe what we need to do is we need to go to the Board of Supervisors and say, look, you know, we thought you understood everything we were doing. These are the things that we need. We need a few answers from you because that is going to change how we spend our time. And there's a lot of effort being made by everybody up here, as well as Nicholas, and I think that we could be a lot more efficient if we just pin some things down with the Board of Supervisors, organize ourselves as a team, because the things that are going to come up soon here with VATI and with the APB rollout, there's going to be a lot to do. And what we want to do is we want to be all in and make it happen, make certain that they're doing what the state requires them to do and what the feds require them to do, and we want to pursue NTIA. So it's sort of, you know, I mean, it doesn't seem that complicated, but I know it's political bodies. So, and that's, you know, normally I'm not on the inside, I'm on the outside. I'm working hard here to be on the inside. So,
Yeah, the only thing to know, they haven't voted on the 575, but what they do have is 600,000 left over from the initial CARES. They have, now, on the 9th, you probably have seen the coalition thing of what you can use. It's roughly $2 million, and you'll subtract out the township's portion of that. You know, the county gets all the money, and then they have to give a certain amount to each
sure.
township, okay? But the county usually gets roughly 50-60% of the money, okay? So now the question is, how can that other money, the rules are just coming out, on how you can use that money. So they don't know, but as of right now, you still have 600,000 under the old rules that have not been committed yet.
I thought it was, well,
You got 2 batches that came out.
2 batches, right. But I don't need to know all of the mechanics and the details. I'm really just responding to what Dr.
Right.
Westbrook offered.
Bob is
but-
good.
Bob is good.
That's good.
That, I don't know about the rest of you, but for me, I like, I'm a real execution person. It's like, okay, we make a decision, we move forward, we get it done. And this question mark out here is interfering with our ability to be efficient, because we say, well, maybe we could get the 575 over here, or maybe we get the 570. If we knew that we weren't necessarily looking for that, but then we start to look at other opportunities and to grow and to build. Instead of, I just feel like we're sort of stuck here in the middle. And I don't understand all the inner workings of the Board of Supervisors. I'm getting up to speed, but I just assumed a date was coming. And if there's something else that we need to do to make this more definitive, then I think we as an authority need to go and meet with them and get it done. Get a date, get it done, whether it's yes or no. I'm not assuming it's going to be either way. I just think it would be good to know.
To put a check mark on it, and let's go.
Yes.
We still have to make.
Well,
That's
the
what
other
I'm-
concern,
Go ahead.
the other concern too is that the CARES money has to be spent by December 31st.
Correct.
So if there's no projects earmarked for it now, time is run, besides the All Points Broadband MOU, time is running out to develop a plan to spend that.
Right.
And what Bob said before, you don't want to give it back.
And when you make your application for the NTIA money, which I understand is Representative Whitman's
Yeah, from
baby,
his thing, yeah.
and maybe that's why it's written so favorably to us. But
No, Westmoreland County, Gator.
That's his county.
you need to be able to say in there what money is being used and how much, and so this would be part of it, right? We're doing APB, and there was a matching, and the county used the CARES match for you know what I mean? All of that goes into, and that can really help your application. And then there'll be a consideration of whether we want to sweeten our position in that application with some matching. But at any rate, that's why we sort of need to know.
Well, we need to know that. We still need to have, I tend to think the county is going to approve the 575.
I can call Don and put him on speaker, and he can either verify what I thought or say, no, there's been no decision. There may have been no official decision, but if his belief is the same as my belief, you can pretty well take it to the bank.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm willing to do it if you're willing to have me do it.
Sure, I would love you to
Then
do
you'll know
that.
something tonight.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And if that goes through, that we get the 575, it looks, pretty much based on this conversation that Bob and Don will have. We still have to come up with, what do we say to Mark Walker? If we're not going to have the 575, if we're going to have the 575, we
Still
still
got
have,
that 200 something we need.
Your call has been forwarded to an automated voice messaging system.
He's like, I'm on
That's
vacation, this is my last day.
okay, we'll
No.
count on
He
you.
has
you're
a
talking
cell
about
phone
the
with
two,
him.
I know, I'm just.
you're talking about the 231 for bad.
Yeah.
But that's
I
still
thought that
hanging
was
out.
already paid.
No.
That hasn't
Oh, no,
been
no,
paid.
we're into the
that's
contract
what-
stage with DHCD. No, that hasn't.
Okay.
And that comes back to exactly what you were just saying. No money has been nailed down for anything.
Right.
Right.
And we need to be like, well, that's spent, let's move to the next bill. That's spent, let's move to the next bill.
231.
That way we realistically know what projects do we need to get money for.
Yes,
231 has been approved. I mean, Don said, yeah, that's fine, we sent the paperwork, and we've got
Oh,
the memo. The
okay.
231 has been approved by the board.
okay, so we're not worrying about that one.
No, that one is
Okay,
done.
so
It
We'll-
went to voicemail.
it went to voicemail, so, but you probably talked, I know you talked to him way more than I do. So we'll just,
We'll hear from him at least by tomorrow.
And
No,
I-
I think what Don will say, this
I think
is
he-
already carved out. I
Okay.
don't think what
Okay.
I
Bob
agree.
is saying.
I thought that's what Don said the last time we talked to it, and he
It
was
was
here
my
at the meeting.
understanding.
Yeah.
I thought
And
he
a
he
com-
qualified it, though.
A conversation I had,
Because
a conversation I
Well,
had,
he qualified because
All
he
right, hold the
needed a
phone,
formal
hold the
vote.
phone,
Wait a minute, Kevin.
hold the phone.
a conversation I had with Mr. Palin was pretty much the 5 was already committed. To us. He said to us. He didn't say what to us, but to us.
Okay.
Bottom line is, we don't have the document that says, here's the approval.
didn't have the vote.
I agree, I think we're gonna have it. But I know, and to Sherry's point, it'd be good to have, it's done, next point.
Yes, I
So
just wanna
if
keep
that's
moving.
done, we're right back now, and 231 has been committed and signed. What do we do with Jesse Ball DuPont? Because this money we get, if we get any, has to be broadband. This is their discussion this year, that it goes to broadband.
And as I said, the options are this tower project, okay? Because what that also does, it improves telecommunications, okay?
It's a good project.
And
Is
that's
the
one-
focus the emergency services? Is
No,
the
no,
tower,
this
or the
is-
tower is just
the-
putting them up and then leasing
Putting
the
it up and
space?
leasing space.
Can I, Nicholas,
Yes.
what do you think about the tower project?
Well, I mean, we haven't done any business case on it, so it's kind of hard to say, what the real needs are by the commercial players, which, if it's really the Verizons, the AT&Ts, the T-Mobiles that are going to fund, that are going to provide the revenue to fund that. So we, haven't done any due diligence even, speaking to them about that.
So,
If we
It's,
have
once,
more-
I mean, if someone mentioned building and they will come. The other thing is, I think you mentioned, I think 99 feet is the break-off point for FCC regulation. Anything above that has to be registered with the FCC, which in general isn't a big deal. It's usually flight plans are the issue, flight paths, I should say, not plans.
can these
That could
towers
hold back.
be used in any way to help with the 5G deployment?
Yes.
They can, okay.
That's essentially what they are now putting up. You have to have fiber to there.
Sure.
So that was Kevin's comment
Right.
on how easy is it going to get the fiber there, but theoretically, that's going to be on the APB pathway.
Right, because that's,
Okay.
the backhaul is where they're
Yeah.
gonna be making more money.
Well, the road, though, in particular, he's talking, you probably wouldn't run a backhaul down.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's not like the main, like where 354 comes through there back to
But you-
Tins Mill, you probably will run a main, but that little spur off, I don't know what kind
You
of,
can have access from 354.
I'm not arguing that, but what I'm saying is, what kind of spur will they put into that spot? Because when your carriers come in, they're not gonna come at you and be like, oh, we need 1 gig of service. They're gonna be like, we need 10 gigabit circuit,
Right.
period. So there is that gamble you're gonna,
Is it the ground that's the problem?
no, it's just in a spot where there is no
How many
service.
fibers? Because we're going to have a major fiber going down 354.
Right.
Okay? And what you also have to do is tell them where it's going to be, so they put a drop there. Okay? Because if you don't, the type of fiber they will probably use is ADDS, which is not as easy to break into. So we just need to tell them APB what we need, how many fibers. It may be 50.
Right. Realistically, it needs
or-
May I ask a question?
Yeah.
If you assume that the money's there, then you can work on your list of priorities.
Yes.
And if you find out tomorrow that there's no deal on the money, then you have to shift those priorities, but at least you get something done tonight.
Yeah.
Instead of talking about all these.
Yeah, so speaking
We
of
need to
which,
prioritize.
it seems to me like for the tower project, from what Nicholas, you just said, we really haven't made a business case for it. I think before we can decide that the tower project is where we want to go with DuPont, we would have to be able to make a case for it, otherwise they're not going to be interested in it, right?
Yep.
We can't just say, oh, we're going to do a build it and they will come thing. We're going to have to present to them that this is going to be a viable project.
Not to mention, you don't know how they're gonna take the whole allure banking that Verizon, these major corporations are
Correct,
gonna
that's
come
a
in.
good point. And then, so it seems to me we're kind of been talking about two things, assuming that we've got the money for the VATI and for the APB projects, right? So then the other thing we were talking about is that APB is doing its analysis, is this correct, Nicholas, of like what is going to be
Covered and so.
covered as far as unserved? And we'll know that
Yeah,
shortly.
it's scheduled for next week. They're going to put people out in the field to verify what exactly is unserved.
Okay, And so if there are these areas that they don't, think are qualified as unserved, then those areas are going to be potential areas that we could ask the DuPont Foundation to help fund.
Well,
Or the other
Service more?
project.
Well, I think they'll be covered by their RDOF win, won't they?
yeah, if it's unserved, then they have to serve them.
Yeah,
Yeah, but I thought that we were talking about like Mary Point, there's the question of this area in Mary Point, of whether or not they're gonna be considered.
Michelle, they were only going to verify in the RDOF territories that they were awarded.
right.
Okay,
So, and am I correct that their RDOF area, census block groups do not cover the area that BTS is contracted with the county to serve?
I believe that some of it does, yes.
It
Yes.
does, okay, so that's really important.
I think some
And
of
what,
the
and what they
northern
do is
areas-
just to kind of, because I asked them how they verify it, they actually go out and take a look at the poles and see where the cable TV drops, where the cable ends.
Because I,
And
Okay.
then they'll do it right in the field, and they'll upload it to, into their GIS system. So they actually get the field, and then they also check even further, because there's a lot of abandoned cable out there. So if they see that it's cut, they'll actually say it's unserved past this, where it's cut. They
And
try to do, they sound like they do a pretty,
and they're upgrading their
know,
mapping because they have to, because of the new mapping requirements.
Yes.
The FCC that,
but they want, yeah.
yeah. So I guess what we need to figure out is what portion of this BTS area is already within the RDOF win of APB, and is there any portion of that BTS contract area that is within the portion of the VATI? And the reason I'm asking this question is because our current relationship with, under these two other contracts is fiber to the premise. And what we want is fiber, and APB is 1 gigabit. That's what they have to deliver. That's what they've committed to. That's what they have to deliver. And Atlantic Broadband, under the VATI, I don't know what,
No, they're not, they're saying if we can come up. with
25.3,
higher,
they can go higher,
They
but
can go higher, but they're committing 25.
Yeah, 25.3 is the minimum.
Yeah.
So where they are going to build new network to extend, it should be higher.
Yeah.
Atlantic Broadband, that is, yeah, okay.
Yes.
So I think the answer
Okay.
to that is really important, because then is the entire, what is now kind of this fixed wireless play that hasn't been built, can it be covered by the fiber play of the other two deals? And if not, would those two be interested in partnering with us, LCBA, as the primary lead on the application under the NTIA to get that covered for fiber?
May I ask another question? It was my understanding that, and I said this publicly, that it was my understanding that ABB changed the rules. Every discussion with them about the VATI grant had been about fiber. And then days before that application deadline, they came back and said, oh, well, we can't do all of it fiber. 50% is going to be copper and 50% fiber. Is there any way to sweeten that pot so that it's fiber to everyone in Lancaster, regardless of what they do to any other county?
Bill Newborg told me when we did that, I said, how much would it, what do you need to do to make this all fiber for VATI? The reason they said they couldn't do it is because their hub back in Weems, his engineers said, oh, we don't have the time or the money. I said, how much? $1 million. Now, I don't know if that is off the top of his head or they came back
Can
with
I ask,
figures.
what was the date of that conversation?
I'd have to go back and look at my email, but we submitted the VATI application, I want to say it was like the 17th or whatever, and this was the week before, about 5-6 days before.
Which year?
When did we do VATI? Last year.
So,
When did we do that? Yeah, last year.
early
No,
20?
later in the year, September, October.
So
Seems
I,
so long.
Yeah, I don't think that finished until after January's timeframe. I don't think it actually.
Oh, no,
got
because we had to
submitted.
do no, we finished it last year, but then they came back because of RDOF, and we
Right.
had to resubmit.
Right.
So it was last fall. I'd have to, I
so
want to say it
I,
was September,
in
October.
response to Dr. Westbrook, I just would, you know, I've heard this from you, then I believe you heard it from somebody else.
Margie Arman
And-
said that to me or
Mm-hmm.
to us, and you were a part of all that,
Yeah,
so you
I
know
was in that
it's true.
conversation.
And my concern is that it's third party. There's nothing that has been shown to me that supports that to be factually accurate. But we have a great opportunity to confirm what their obligations are to deploy under VATI and what they are deploying based upon the filings that they have to make with the state and the feds. So what I think that the authority needs to do is pin down, because obviously this is a big concern now that I've heard from 3 separate people, I guess, about ABB delivering copper, half fiber. And I think that we really need just to run that to ground.
Well, you have, Cassie has Margie's contact information. She was the lawyer on the Broadband Authority. She's the one who mentioned that to me, although you were part of all that
Oh, yeah,
before
I was on that phone
me,
call.
Yeah, my
so-
concern is only that a lot, you know, there has been so many changes in a short period of time as far as the money that's been available, Atlantic Broadband's involvement in RDOF through the Federal Communications Commission, and maybe something that was going on in 2019, early 2019, and communications were exchanged has dramatically changed today. and we
Nobody's
can-
arguing with confirming the information.
I just think, right?
Nobody's arguing that. What I suggested was the possibility of whether or not the DuPont money could be added to sweeten the pot with ABB so
Make
that
it
in
all
Lancaster
fiber.
County, it's all fiber.
Put
That's
it
all
back.
I
Oh,
said.
I missed the Jesse DuPont connection.
Well,
So,
Oh, yeah, to take, why, if, I'll use Bill Newberg's figure of $1 million. It may not be, that's what he threw out there. But if that is something that was really $250,000 and they could make it all fiber to do what his engineers said they'd have to do, that's where we could use it.
it's even possible that you could weave that into the NTIA application.
I'm just trying to get you on the agenda, talking about DuPont and getting your priorities,
Yeah,
because
yeah,
this
yeah.
is going on forever.
All right, I think we need to, there are a couple of things. One, I'm going to call Mark Walker to find out what kind of timeline we're talking about. This happened last week. My last conversation, no, he hadn't heard. That's one thing. We got to know how much time we've got to come to a decision. We need to identify all the possibilities and prioritize them. We've heard about 5, 6 different things, and one I like if, even something we can attach to EMS and broadband, because everybody understands the importance of EMS, et cetera, firefighters, all that stuff. If we can come up with the best ones and we find out, I'm going to go with the assumption we're getting to 575. I think that's a dead issue. And then we know the timeline. We decide which of these we want to go for, which would be good for NTIA. It seems to be a better proposal to put there. But we need to, I agree with Bob, we've got to come up with which 3, 4, and how much time do we have? I'm assuming we have some time, but it may not be much.
Not, Glenn, can you answer a question right now? Can you, you're dealing with when are they making the decision on whether to do the microwave towers or potentially fiber? The EMS group?
I don't have that information. The only thing that I'm involved with there is the next generation 911.
Right.
I don't know if that's what you're talking about or not.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking. They were talking to get the signal here, they were going to do 2 microwave towers.
2?
Yeah, they had to bounce it over to.
I was about to say globally.
I'm not
there's
sure we're
no
talking
way-
about the same thing here. That, that next generation 911 is two diverse fiber routes into the sheriff's office. That's all.
okay.
that's
Fiber base.
Okay, maybe it's just but they were talking about they need to put up 2 microwave.
Okay.
Okay, the bottom line is, do we have an EMS element to this? We, obviously, you have to
We need
figure
to
it out.
follow up. I know
Follow up.
Don has, the decision's coming soon.
All righty, we need to know what are those things that we could possibly go to DuPont for? And I think EMS is a viable option, but you can see what other things Don may have. The other thing is, I'd like the idea of getting, make ABB, try to encourage them to make it all fiber in Vatty. That'd be a separate contract with us and ABB, not Vatty, because this was not included. But if we have the money, when we get him, I'll say, if you're interested in upgrading that, we're interested, I need figures of how much.
Well,
And
the
then
other-
we can
yeah.
see if it's something we want to consider,
Well,
maybe
we
way
did
beyond.
speak to them.
Oh,
Go
I'm
ahead,
sorry.
Nicholas.
I did speak to Bob Newberg about that. So not only is the Weems head end have to be upgraded, it's also, he threw the number out, be an additional $2,500 per pass.
2,500 for the areas, if they
For-
get that
For
up.
fiber, yeah. So I think we have, the other issue we have to be cognizant of is that we might, we're going, the horse left the barn with the plan that they're executing right now. We haven't seen the plan, but I'm not sure how much of it is actually, there is going to be some fiber solutions in there. We don't know what the ratio is between fiber and the coaxial. And also, how much of the coaxial that they're going to put in is going to be the new generation protocol, which could go way above the 25. So these are all things we have to see when they roll out their plan. We have the next meeting with Vatty, I think, is in a week or two.
I think it's a
To
week
follow
from
up on that.
Tuesday. I think it's a week from
So.
tomorrow. I have to look.
Nicholas, I thought that at that first Vatty meeting, that ABB had to report how many miles of fiber, like as an initial, that initial checklist that we were given by the state, that ABB had to come back and report a specific number on the fiber. Did
And
they
and I
do
think we
that?
have, I think Gary, we have that number. Gary has that.
Okay, and
I
was
mean,
that broken down in any way as to per county?
No,
Because it was
I think it's just total and sheet miles.
Yeah,
Of fiber.
I don't
Yeah,
think it's,
that was-
is it fiber or just their runs? Because I thought that was combined fiber and coax.
I don't think they broke them apart.
At the meeting,
think
she
it's
was
just total.
specifically using
I
the word
understand.
fiber, so I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, sometimes they use it interchangeably when it shouldn't be.
Yeah,
Okay.
I agree with
Okay.
that.
When would you expect to get confirmation on what they filed? When is the deadline for them to let the public know what they're doing so you can confirm what they're doing? Is that in the future?
I'm not certain what Nicholas is talking about, but I'm going to pull everything they've recently filed at both at the Federal Communications Commission in connection with their other RDOF wins, and that should tell me a lot, just like it did about APB. And then the other thought I've had, but I haven't had any time to dig in on it, was that Atlantic Broadband's franchise agreement with the county hasn't been renewed in many years, I believe. And it's on this renewal thing. And that is a tool
That
that
was
the
leverage.
county can be,
We were
can
hoping it was
use.
gonna
And
be
I think
leverage.
that
Oh, yeah.
it's something that I'm quite knowledgeable about, and I wanted to look at it so that I could, people agreed, reinitiate and say it's time to enter into a new franchise agreement with the county and get some improvement that way.
Yeah.
And maybe if it's in combination with these other things that we have going on. I mean, there's a part of me, and Nicholas, correct me if you disagree, but with everything that's now coming into the county, Starlink and whatnot, there's a lot of competition coming. And the other thing is cable companies are losing their video programming subscribers. Everybody wants the broadband, so there's a lot of pressure on them to upgrade their networks, to focus on that, and then get the revenues from like streaming and whatnot, as opposed to cable programming. So it just might, if we put pressure from both sides, as well as working with them as a partner, both with VATI and maybe also this NTIA thing, it could be a win-win for both parties.
The last conversation, well, email with Fran Bradley, he's the vice president, who keeps asking, well, what's happening with this? I told him, as you are aware, we are pursuing some grants, and that was before APB and Dominion. And I said, we're not going to make any decisions until we're aware. We hadn't heard about Russ at that point. And this could change our relationship, period, send.
Yeah, now we'll sleep with both eyes open.
Because it is leverage.
Yeah.
It is
Keep
leverage.
your enemies close.
Okay, so do we have sort of an idea where we're going with the Jesse Ball? I'll take the action of finding out what kind of timing we're talking about, if the foundation is ready to make some decisions or whatever. And we need to know about what we would offer as a project.
Well, that's the challenging piece, and this is the discussion we keep
Yes.
having. So I think
I
we
would
really need to nail that down.
I would suggest within a week, there should be an email, anybody who has suggestions, define, identify what you would put forth in the next few days. And so everybody sees it, and we can comment on it like this won't work because, or this is a good one. And we have that discussion, we prioritize it, and based on what Mark tells us, we write it up for presentation. And he said, remember, he will come and talk to us or Zoom, whatever.
So
about the
Gary and
project.
Cassie, am I right, though? I mean, the Jesse Ball doesn't have this quote, unserved.
No,
No,
they
that's
just
what I'm
said
saying.
broadband.
Yeah,
Yeah, so-
the thing that they have emphasized is they want to help low economic families.
Yeah, okay, and that was like the Nutsville?
Nutsville,
that's why
I
that's,
went with
that's
that.
why I picked the various
Yeah.
things to tie it to. And then, as I said, I was trying to put roughly $1 million project over several years together, because Nutsville itself, just going from here to Nutsville and covering that triangle, is about $1.5 million. So that, as soon as I heard it was $1.5 million, remember, that's for 5 counties. We're not gonna get all that nut in one time. Now, we could ask for the $1.5 million over, for.
That was over the period of time. But I mean, I think that, which was a very well-developed plan, you had the PowerPoint presentations,
Right.
nice slides, that is like ready to go. I mean, so if anybody,
We can edit whatever options you want to put on there, yeah.
Yep.
I mean, I think that's the furthest along, and sounds like it has the most,
Yeah, and that's what I was showing before. It's essentially this presentation, it goes through, our whole background.
but can I
and
ask
all
you
that
one
stuff.
more question? I'm sorry.
Sure.
Were you starting to say, though, earlier that you thought that the Nutsville area would be covered by APB?
Right now, it's covered by APB. They are in an
Okay.
unserved area.
Yeah.
So that
So
whole,
it's
really that whole
Okay.
peninsula.
So that's the problem.
No, so that, we would not include that to Jesse Ball. We just have to find something.
All the
Okay,
projects.
so now I'm back to my BTS thing. All right.
Yeah, so
All
actually,
roads lead to there.
yeah, to be quite honest, that's why I was surprised when you said there were some other unserved parcels or in the county, because at least to my knowledge, between the ABB project right now and the APB project, we have no more unserved. Now, as Nicholas and I have talked about, there's probably 2 homes over here in the middle of
Yeah.
nowhere, or something of that nature. I don't have any doubt that we may be missing those 2.
Yeah, we
And
won't
that's
know until
why
next week.
I love the idea of posting, we're gonna cover this area. Okay, I think you put it up on the website now, right?
Yes,
That-
it's up there.
Okay, so now anybody in that area can say, great, or.
It's coming.
It's coming.
Yeah.
Okay, the problem is, APB does not want to post that until it goes through the SCC, because they don't want to give out information to ABB where to head them off at the pass, so to speak. Once it's approved, they're saying, okay, we don't care, we're just going. Okay.
So why don't we, I mean, it seems to me that we just need this information from APB on, like, whether or not this BTS area is going to be, they're going to be able to cover that or not.
And that's what
And
we're
if-
hoping to get know
So,
in the next
right,
week
so
or
we'll know
two.
in the next week. So after that, I think we can be in a position, if
Identify
they're
an
not
area.
going to cover it, then we
We've got
should
an area.
focus on that area.
Oh,
'cause
That's the
absolutely.
Jesse Ball
Clearly,
area.
yeah.
Well, that becomes then this project that I also.
Or
do.
NTIA.
Well,
My whole thing is like, or it's.
Well,
you,
yeah.
you,
Or
you can
maybe
do,
it's
you can do
both.
multiple, yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
or maybe it's, we get
the
the
solar.
commitment from Jesse Ball and to, on behalf of Lancaster County, they're making the matching grant, whether or not that would qualify as matching under,
Depends on the cost of
Well,
Well, I
it.
don't think I think it would be okay, you would,
Technically, they'd give the funds to the county would turn around and give it to us
yeah,
as the match.
yeah, exactly, the way
and,
Yeah,
Kevin said.
and then later they can say, hey, we did this.
Yes.
So maybe, because that, from what I understand, that would improve our grant application.
10%, at least 10%
And the beauty of
the
that
cost.
grant application is that the primary party on the application has to be the county. It has to be the public body.
Okay.
And then the ISPs work for us.
Oh, that's good.
And you can have more than one ISP. That's why I was asking Nicholas, is part of it ABB and part of it APB? Because we could have both of them involved, if, to have the whole area covered. But that displaces maybe a provider, but.
Okay.
We
Well,
have- we also-
let's, I think that, so let's find out. We have a week. Let's find out, because clearly that would be a priority. Because if it's not covered, I don't think that in the long run, no one's ever thought of that CARES Act tower being the long-term solution. We want those people to have
Well,
fun.
I agree.
So let's wait a week, and then if it's not covered, that's gonna be the project, and we'll figure out how to go about it. And if it is covered, well, then we'll have to figure it out.
Yeah, well, then I don't
that's when we look
see
at
a
EMS.
specific. Yeah, well, you have the EMS. I like the idea of somehow, and what, again, I want to make sure that NTIA would cover it. But the thing I really want to look at is how do we get, we know there's two sources of very old plant from ABB, which gives lousy service. One's in Kilmarnock, one's in Irvington. Okay? Well, it's just old plant. I mean,
It's just like,
good luck, yeah. Well, you know, one of the richest people in this county says, can't you do something? He was excited about having everybody getting covered, but then he says, I still get this buffering wheel every night I try and download a movie. And, you know, that may be not only bandwidth, that may also be the fact that ABB does not go straight to a data center. They probably ping pong, I don't know how
who
many it is.
knows, but at any rate,
Yeah.
it's all gonna, I mean, the good news is, it's coming.
Yeah.
There's
Faster than
money
we
out
thought.
there that
But-
we can
But
have access
that's
to.
what we need to do, is identify where we have unserved people that we can connect into the NTIA, and then also what areas really need it. I mean, we can say, okay, 5,000 residents, and, okay, go to it, okay, which is okay, you got APB, okay, APB, finish up the county.
Okay, but right now, you're talking about
Yes, it's going
Jesse
off.
Ball, DuPont, and later on, you're gonna have closed session, and I'm going home.
Okay,
So-
all right.
Shoot, I'm gonna go
And I'll
with you.
stop by for a drink after I
That'd
leave
be
the
good.
vine. Okay.
Okay, so we know where we're going, information. Nicholas, how, did
box.
Jimmy give you an idea of how long, or Chuck give you an idea of how long it would take them to do their survey?
No, he didn't indicate that, but it shouldn't take, too long, I wouldn't think.
Maybe a
or two.
week?
I guess he needs it for his application, doesn't he?
Exactly.
Yes,
Yeah, he can't drag his feet on this. Okay.
no.
All right, so we'll say about a week, and give or take a couple of days, hopefully that's done. And so we'll find out, as soon as we know that, and we've got ideas for others, we'll go forth with it. By our next meeting, we should be able to say, this is what we want to do, and I'll talk to Mark Walker about timing. Okay, we're almost finished. The only other thing, the management team, which we had to establish per DHCD for the planning grant, there is no reason to keep the management team now. They've changed, I don't know if you probably don't know, Jill Bessler is retiring from the hospital, and she's retiring from the management team. We've got others, one guy from the college, although they did replace him. We really don't need the management team. So I'm going to send them out, if you agree, an email just to say, thank you very much. We'll keep you in the loop. Do I hear a motion?
I move to disband the management team.
A second?
Second.
All right, got a second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Good, that's done. And that's it for the open session. Okay. And you
Reeves?
already had your pit stop? You're going to stay now?
I hope so. Depends on what.
Do
my-
I
Can we-
have to leave?
Yes,
Darn
it's
it,
getting late.
darn it.
Yeah, right.
I have a,
Softball thing.
All right,
Oh,
Okay.
okay.
I
you're
would-
moving to go into closed session.
Yes.
Yes.
And I'm going to
can
read
I,
what it
should I,
is.
if, am I, I want to leave.
Okay.
I have an event I would like to go attend.
Okay.
Is that,
That's-
am I allowed to do that?
Yeah, you can leave anytime you want.
can.
They haven't said the reasons for it. So,
Okay.
yeah, you-
All righty. You have to
And-
leave.
Y'all are basically talking about the new thing, the new, I mean, are y'all discussing new stuff, or are you discussing?
You can't talk
What we've
about
been
what you're
hitting
gonna
at.
talk about until you
It's
talk
some
about
new
it.
stuff of what you, put it this way, you can.
Before you
say-
leave in closed session,
We're gonna do a closed session. You can hear what it's about and if you have to leave.
Okay, cool.
Okay.
Yeah.
We're gonna go into closed
I'm-
session. I'm sorry?
I have to log out of this and go into another Zoom to get for closed.
Oh, okay.
So
Oh, yeah.
you're gonna lose me.
Well,
You're gonna lose my beautiful
you can leave
face
us
for.
in.
Okay,
Oh, I
okay.
can't
We could-
handle that.
You could still
That's
say the
throwing back
purpose.
conspiracy.
I'm gonna say it. We're gonna go into closed session per 2.2-3711A, paragraph 29 of the Code of Virginia. Discussion of the award of a public contract involving the expenditure of public funds, including interviews of bidders or offerers, and discussion of the terms or scope of such contract, where discussion in open session would adversely affect the bargaining position or negotiating strategy of the public body. That's it. All right.
So